Being a graffiti writer is taking the chances and shit, taking the risks, taking like all the arguments from the transit, from the police, from your own moms, you know, from your friends and shit. You know, you got to take all that bullshit. You're vandalizing all those trains.
We're coming up on 30 years since the movie Wild Style showed hip-hop culture as it was then in the Bronx, an explosion of cultural expression. Hip-hop had been developing in New York City for nearly a decade, but it exploded into an international scene after Wild Style came out in 1983, showcasing 4 disciplines: rapping, breakdancing, DJing, and possibly the most controversial, graffiti. The same year, 1983, the documentary Style Wars took an even deeper look at graffiti culture in New York, and it showed young people who were devoted to spray painting their names all over the city. Graffiti had its own vocabulary, techniques, and codes of conduct. You could scribble your name quickly, a tag, or make bigger, more elaborate efforts, a piece. And graffiti artists won respect for originality. There, in the 80s, the hallmark of modern graffiti culture was born: calligraphy with rhythm.
I got styles already that's more complex that nobody know about. I mean, super duty tough work. See, this is just semi, like what I would call it. But if I really get into it and start camouflaging it, I don't think you even be able to read it.
And not long after that, and partly because of those 2 movies, graffiti culture made its way to Sweden.
They have been looking a lot at the States, the ones who are interested in this culture in Sweden.
Palle Nilsson is an officer with the Stockholm police force, who from 1996 to 1999 worked in a special division devoted to combating graffiti. Graffiti is no less popular today, he said. There have been over 600 arrests made so far this year in Stockholm. There were 1,400 in total last year. And the first fans of the culture are passing the torch on to younger people. This August, Stockholm saw the Art of the Streets Festival, 2 days of artists showing their chops, films, discussions, debates, and lectures, including one from Adam Mansbach. Mansbach teaches at Rutgers University in New Jersey, and on the first day of the festival, he gave a talk about Phase 2, one of the first ever artists who started in the early 70s. Mansbach showed slides and talked about style developments like he were speaking to an art history class.
So here is an early train. This would probably be something Phase knocked out in 1972 at the dawn of piecing. So you see the separation of all the letters. They're all well formed.
As a subject of study, graffiti has political appeal. It was a way of expression for disadvantaged young New Yorkers, mostly black and Latino kids, whose North New York neighborhoods were cut off from wealthier Manhattan by major highways. Hip-hop is intertwined with life in ghettos ravaged by drugs and violence. Graffiti's story is one of self-promotion and creativity amidst the chaos of inner-city life. So what place does it have in a cradle-to-grave welfare state?
Especially when I got a little bit older, I was fascinated how we could be so into something that was created by people who had completely different conditions of life than we had. But on the other hand, I mean, there is such a richness to hip-hop culture. And I think some of the questions and some of the things that hip-hop gives you, like identity and creativity, they are, of course, interpreted in another sense, but it was very appealing also for a kid in Stockholm. And that probably, as a teenager in Stockholm in the 80s, Stockholm was a very dull city, I would say, very, very dull.
Jakob Kimvall, a co-curator of the Art of the Streets Festival. Kimvall, who's 38, was a graffiti artist during the culture's early days in Stockholm. Now, he's studying for his PhD in art history.
I usually try to differentiate between the aesthetic discussion of graffiti and political, juridical, because fortunately it's not legal to be ugly, so it's not really the same thing. There is a lot of illegal graffiti that is beautiful, and there's a lot of illegal graffiti that I consider at least being ugly. Questions of ugly and beauty is very much in the eye of the beholder. I mean, if I had a beautiful house that I thought was already beautiful, if somebody came and painted on it, I guess I would be pissed off how beautiful it was. There's places where graffiti definitely can destroy things, and there's places where graffiti actually can enlighten things and have a purpose. If you decontextualize a tag totally, you can usually get people to see the beautifulness in a well-executed tag. There's, of course, a lot of tags that are very ugly. But this is not only a graffiti convention, that's also important. This is a street art convention, and a lot of people who dislikes graffiti do like street art. And I think it's because of that street art has a more open aesthetic. It's more easy to understand street art, even if you don't know anything about it.
Paula Nilsson at the Stockholm police described their viewpoint.
That's pretty important. I think it's not for us to define art. As we just work according to the law. And if you paint without permission on someone else's property, it's vandalism, no matter if you look upon yourself as an artist or not.
And Nilsson was critical of having a festival that celebrated a culture which foundationally is illegal.
It's mostly younger people, absolutely. And that's why I think it's a little bit sad and a bit naive to arrange these type of events, because these events creates an interest in graffiti among youngsters and kids. And this interest leads to criminal convictions and liable for damage to very young people, and I think it's pretty sad.
It's so strange always with the criticism when it comes to street art and graffiti that you have to defend that people get inspired. I think that what we are trying to do here is establishing means to get infrastructure for street art. There is a lot of people who are interested in graffiti. The so-called zero tolerance policy have been tried in Stockholm for 15 years. If it was successful, if it was the only way, like they say, then why is it still a problem for them?
At the festival, there was a free-to-paint wall with a line of young people working on letters. A boy, who couldn't have been older than 4 years old, scribbled frantically in a fog of spray paint, wearing a mask, fingers covered with shiny wet paint.
I'm Caroline, I'm 15.
You followed your friend, yeah?
Yeah.
What do you think of graffiti? Is it something you'd want to get into?
Yes, we're already in, but not illegal. It would be fun if it's legalized.
How old are you, can I ask?
18.
So you said you're an active graffiti artist. Do you...
Quite active. I go out bombing some evenings and nights a day a week.
Have you ever gotten in trouble?
I have got into trouble once, and we got arrested for vandalism. But we don't get no punishment.
When I went down there before, I saw it looked like a 3 or 4 year old spray painting on the wall. What do you think about that?
It's fun that they try it out. It's legal here, and why not try? It's culture. It's an art form.
What's your name?
Jonna.
Can I ask how old you are?
31.
You've got your 4-year-old daughter here. What do you think about bringing kids here? Is it encouraging kids to do something illegal?
No, it's encouraging kids to think out of the box and just be creative. And if she grows up to be a graffiti painter and wants to take those risks, knowing that she can be fined and be responsible to pay a lot of money, if she takes that decision, then I trust her to think for herself.
Can I ask your name?
I'm Kai.
How old are you?
I'm 24.
What got you to the event? Are you interested in graffiti or a practicing artist?
I'm both.
What do you have to say to that criticism that this could get some young people getting out there and getting in trouble?
I think that kind of talk that's been around in Stockholm forever. Since the mid-80s, that has always been the thing. The reason why we don't have legal walls in Stockholm is because of politicians like Birgitta Rydell or Kjell Hultman, who say that if you promote legal graffiti, that's going to increase the amount of illegal graffiti, that it's like a practice space for vandals and youths at risk. But if you look at cities like Gothenburg or Malmö, where legal walls and legal spaces have existed for numerous years, you see that the amount of illegal graffiti has actually dropped and decreased significantly. And it's the same in the rest of the world. If you look at New York, if you look at other big cities, it's just like a fact. It doesn't make any sense, but it's one of those arguments that have just been repeated for such a long time. It just doesn't make any sense. I just don't understand it.
Nicky, who's 38, said he remembered seeing graffiti in the States during the early 80s, and he was writing in Sweden soon afterwards. There's little hope it will be accepted by society, he said. Even providing legal walls still